Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about running business-critical databases with Google Cloud. This is going to be a deep dive on how to run SQL Server and Oracle workloads with Google Cloud. We'll go over how you can lift and shift your Oracle workloads to the bare metal solution, and then we'll talk about a lot of the new capabilities in Cloud SQL for SQL Server that make it easier than ever for you to migrate your workloads and take advantage of all of these built-in capabilities around high availability, data protection, and security, all while making sure that you're getting the value that you need for what you're paying. There we go, wrong direction. My name is Isabella Lubin. I'm a product manager here at Google Cloud. I'm joined today by Michelle Burtoft, who is also a product manager at Google Cloud. We're super excited to have Scott Allred here as well. Scott is from Merits, and he'll be talking about how Merits runs on Google Cloud. So just a quick overview about what we'll be talking about today. Michelle and I will give a brief intro about what we do in our services. We'll talk about why we're seeing more and more database customers choose managed services and kind of the broad spectrum of value that we see customers get out of managed services. We'll talk about how you can run Oracle on bare metal solution. We'll talk about how you can run SQL Server on Cloud SQL. Scott will come on and talk about how Merits is running on Google Cloud. And then we'll leave plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So when we get to the Q&A section, there's a mic right there. Just come up to the mic so that everyone can hear you. So just a bit about myself. As I said, my name is Isabella Lubin. I'm a senior product manager here at Google Cloud. I lead Cloud SQL for SQL Server. So I really focus on how I can help our customers run SQL Server here with Google. That often means bringing them to Cloud SQL for SQL Server. That also often means working very closely with our friends over on the Compute Engine side, helping customers run SQL Server on Compute Engine, and sometimes helping customers modernize their SQL Server workloads to Alloy DB or Cloud SQL for Postgres.
Good morning. Hi, Michelle Burtoft. I'm a product manager here for Google's bare metal solution. We focus primarily on Oracle workloads and solving that for our customers, meeting you where you are. So whether that is lift and shift, migrating, modernizing, ultimately transforming your business, we're here for you with regards to Oracle. Bare metal solution is about a 3-year-old solution that we've brought to our customers, continuing to build our product, migrate, modernize, and very happy to share a little bit more with you today about that, and we're going to dive into that shortly.
So first, we wanted to talk about why we see more customers moving their databases to managed services. This is a really interesting stat from Harvard Business School. 97% of business leaders believe that to remain competitive, they need to be undergoing digital transformation. And what that really means is that companies are realizing that they need to be able to iterate much, much faster on their customer experience, use data for that iteration, and continue to drive value both for their customers, but also while minimizing risk for their organization. And we see this covering a spectrum of databases, right? Today, we're going to be talking about running Oracle and SQL Server with Google Cloud. But this mandate of digital transformation that a lot of companies are seeing is not unique just to the relational database world. And so we wanted to talk about some of the themes that Google is bringing to all of our managed database services, whether that's the relational databases like Oracle and SQL Server and Postgres, or in-memory DBs, document DBs, key-value DBs, right? So there are a couple of common themes that we have across all of these database services. I want to touch on them really quickly, and I think you'll see many of these themes iterated throughout the presentation as we talk about bare metal solution and we talk about Cloud SQL for SQL Server. So the first is we really want to make sure that you have a super simple and easy to use experience, that everything is really built in for you so it's easy for you to manage, but also that we give you the right insights so that you can make sure that you're tuning your databases for what you need. Trusted is really important. We want to make sure that customers that have more rigorous requirements, either because of the industry that they're in or because of their organization, that we can help them meet those requirements with capabilities like built-in high availability, data protection, and security. We want to make sure that we have an open environment, right, that we're integrated into open source communities, that we're providing you with open source databases. In the case of Cloud SQL for SQL Server, that means that some of these capabilities we'll talk about a little bit later, that it's easy for you to get your data in and also easy for you to export your data. We want to make sure that we're integrated with the Google Cloud ecosystem. So capabilities like federation with BigQuery or how you run with GKE are really important because your database is just one part of your overall application, and being able to use Google Cloud services together is really, really critical for many of our customers. We want to make it easy for you to migrate. Migration is, I think, one of the least fun experiences that most people go through. So we want to make it really, really easy for you to move your workloads where you need to and make it easy for you to modernize those workloads. I don't know if folks have heard about a lot of the new capabilities coming to the Oracle to Postgres migrations and how AI is integrated in that. Really making sure that we're continuing to iterate on your migration experience is super, super critical for us. And then finally, but not last, right, financial governance and cost. We want to make sure that you're getting value out of your databases and that you're getting what you need. So that these are all themes that you're going to see kind of infused across databases. And we're going to stress these when we talk about bare metal solution and when we talk about Cloud SQL for SQL Server.
Thanks, Isabella. So today we're going to talk through those two different commercial offerings, Oracle and SQL Server. When we speak to Oracle, we have several different options: lift and shift, migrate, modernize. Ultimately, you might look to several of our other solutions. Same thing when it comes to SQL Server. Moving to Oracle, we know that moving to cloud, innovating, modernizing your workloads, it's not easy. You want a solution that ultimately brings Oracle, but you want that without limitations. The same features, the same capabilities that you have on premises. Google offers 4 different solutions to run your Oracle workloads in the cloud. First and most popular is our bare metal solution. We're going to dive a bit deeper into this momentarily, but I can tell you that most of our customers choose Google's bare metal solution. This is our preferred route for customers to use their on-prem licensing and ultimate capabilities. This allows you to run your Oracle RAC natively with those same licensing costs as you have on premises. Now, what if you run VMware? Then perhaps Google Cloud VMware Engine is the right solution for you, or GCVE. This is a fully managed VMware infrastructure offering with Google. Allows you to lift and shift your VMware workloads for use with Google Cloud. Those are the 2 most common offerings we see our customers choosing. But what if you have something that's perhaps more complex? This is where our partner-offered services come into play. Engineered solutions in region extensions are an offering where you can bring your own hardware and operate those within a low latency connection to Google Cloud. Finally, Equinix DB Anywhere is an offering from our partner that also offers you that low latency connection and is available at all of our Google Cloud locations. So how do you optimize your Google workloads with bare metal solutions? For customers that are choosing to migrate to Google Cloud, you want to innovate. Ultimately, you want a cost-effective solution that allows easy migration, modernization, and allows you to innovate with the same services that are capable on Google Cloud. You can run Oracle databases, even RAC, older versions, and special use cases on bare metal solution. We give you a set of certified hardware, Atos Bolsa Quanta servers, that is optimized and certified, again, to run those Oracle workloads on the cloud. You get availability across 13 regions, continuing to grow, and a low latency connection, less than 2 milliseconds away from Google Cloud. This is a fully managed data center with enterprise-grade security, architecture, and reliability that Google's known for. And finally, managed storage and networking for an optimized migration configuration. So, how do you bring the innovation of Google Cloud to your Oracle database? Chances are most of you have already been beneficiaries of bare metal service today. It's still early in the morning, but let's do a show of hands and keep your hands up. How many of you made an airline reservation to get here to Google Next this year? Hands up. Hotel reservations. Did you trade stocks maybe in the last month? Online banking? Yeah, I think 90% of our audience here is using a solution or a service that is provided and populated by Google's bare metal solution. Now, how do you bring the innovation of Google Cloud? BMS allows our customers to focus on the future and not be stuck in the past. So as you start your migration journey, you can migrate to Google BMS while beginning to integrate more capabilities. First, let's look to data stream. You can stream your data in real time from Oracle to BigQuery. Next, perhaps you want to look to GKE to containerize your app tier with seamless access to your data in Oracle. And finally, when you're ready, how many of you have been to an AlloyDB presentation this week? All right, I like those hands. When you're ready to migrate off of Oracle to open source, we can help you migrate with the help of Duet AI and Database Migration Service. These are all offerings and capabilities that bare metal service for Oracle gives you, and we're happy to partner with you. And now, let me hand it back over to Isabella to share what Google can do for your databases with SQL Server and Cloud SQL.
Okay, let's dive into it. Who here has already been to a Cloud SQL session while you're here? Okay, this slide is familiar, right? Cloud SQL is a managed relational database service. It supports MySQL, Postgres, and SQL Server. It's used by over 95% of Google Cloud's top 100 customers. And what that means is that all of these capabilities that customers need around data protection, security, high availability, those are infused throughout the service. And a lot of the infrastructure is actually common, which allows us to do some really interesting things with how we support SQL Server. Cloud SQL is an API-first platform. We know that a lot of customers are doing, Terraform-driven provisioning and management, and so we really want to make sure that we're giving you all of the management and maintenance capabilities in an API-first way. So there are three main pillars of Cloud SQL for SQL Server. The first is compatibility. We want to make sure that it's easy for you to use all of the SQL Server capabilities you're already using on-prem, that you have version currency so that you can keep up with the latest versions of SQL Server, and that you don't have to do a lot of conversion when you migrate. The second pillar is flexibility. So moving to a managed service should not mean that you are losing control. You need the service to work for you. You need it to work the way that your organization works. So making sure that you have flexible options around provisioning, but also flexible options around things like how do we do maintenance is really, really important for the service. And then the third pillar, and this is relevant to SQL Server more than any other engine, I'll say, is that a lot of SQL Server customers are traditional enterprises that need enterprise capabilities, and they can't compromise on that when they move to a managed service. So making sure that we're delivering capabilities around data protection, high availability, monitoring, and security is really critical for us. So I'm going to touch on each of these three pillars and some of the capabilities we've recently delivered in the service, and then I'm going to show a demo. It is a recorded demo because I don't trust the Wi-Fi, but I'm happy to come and talk to you afterwards about and show how you can do all of this provisioning in the console as well. Okay, so the first, we talked about compatibility. So the first slide I want to talk about is all of the capabilities that we've been delivering with SQL Server. We just launched support for SQL Server 2022, which is the latest version of SQL Server delivered by Microsoft. You can configure that in the console or via gCloud or API. We support SQL Server Audit. So we have a lot of customers who are leveraging the built-in Google Cloud Audit as well, but you can configure audit specifications using SQL Server Audit if you want to be monitoring lower-level operations in your database. We support linked servers, which allows you to query across other SQL Server instances. When you create an instance, you can now set the time zone that the instance should be running in so that you can make sure that your entire application is running in the same time zone. And I talked a little bit about this pillar around having an open cloud. You can set transactional replication up either to your Cloud SQL instance or from your Cloud SQL instance. So you can set up Cloud SQL as publisher for transactional replication. We have a lot of customers who are doing that because they want to keep a SQL Server instance in another environment up to date. So you can set up transactional replication in both directions. When it comes to flexibility, one of the things we hear most frequently is that customers really want to make sure that they're optimizing price performance. So there are a couple of things I want to touch on. The first is that with HA for Cloud SQL, we provide high availability for all 4 editions of SQL Server that we support. We do that because our HA is built off of synchronous replication at a storage layer in 2 zones of the same region. So it's not built off of the SQL Server availability groups. The way that we deliver HA is not built off of traditional SQL Server availability groups. So you can configure HA for any edition of SQL Server. I don't know if anyone here is using SMT off on the compute side for running their SQL Server workloads. I don't see any hands. SMT off is actually a very powerful capability. Rather than having 2 virtual threads mapped per physical core, you can disable simultaneous multi-threading and then have just 1 thread mapped per physical core. What that means is that from the SQL Server perspective, you're actually only having 1 licensed thread per physical core. So you're still provisioning the same compute infrastructure, but it can help reduce licensing costs. For a lot of workloads, this may have a performance impact, so we encourage you to validate this with your workloads and try it out, but we do have a lot of customers who are leveraging this to control SQL Server licensing costs. And the final point, and this is an increasing theme, is consider converging multiple databases into a single instance. We do see a lot of customers who have a tiny database on one instance that's actually provisioned with a lot of compute resources, and if you have too much spread, when you move to the cloud, it's a really great opportunity to consider whether there's consolidation that should happen. From an enterprise readiness perspective, we recently launched support for point-in-time recovery. This allows you to restore all databases on your instance or a single database on that instance back to a previous time. That's supported for up to 7 days with Cloud SQL for SQL Server. As I mentioned, we have automated high availability built in for all 4 editions. You can use read replicas for disaster recovery. So you can create a read replica either in region or in another region. And then if for some reason you need to now have the new primary running in that other region, you can do a promote of that replica. We recently launched 38 new observability metrics for SQL Server that help you monitor things like lock weights, replication lag, and really understand what's going on with your instance. So when it comes to migrating to Cloud SQL, you have a couple of options. You can import traditional SQL Server full backups. We now support striped backups, and I'll show you what that looks like in the demo. You can also bring in a full backup and then bring in a differential on top, which can again help reduce migration downtime. As I mentioned, we support SQL Server replication, so you can set up replication to Cloud SQL. And then if you're really focused on minimizing downtime, we do have a lot of customers who are using some of our partners for setting up CDC-based migrations. So I'm going to quickly run this demo, and we're going to see how it goes. OK, great. So I'm in the Cloud SQL console. This is the new instance provisioning page. As you can see, our default is still SQL Server 2019 standard, but you can configure all of the same 4 editions that we support with SQL Server 2022. And again, HA is provided for all 4 of those editions. So we're going to go down here, and you can see how I actually configure high availability. This is synchronous replication to 2 zones in the same region. If you want to specify the zone that your primary instance is in and your secondary instance is in, you can do so, or you can let us decide, and we'll automatically designate which zone your primary and your secondary should be running in. There are a lot of configuration options available lower down. And so, I know we're trying to simplify the experience to make it really easy for you to configure, but if you need to customize your instance in any way, I encourage you to expand the customized options. You'll be able to disable simultaneous multi-threading under the machine configuration section. You can do that for any machine that is up to at least 6 vCPUs. You still have to have a 4-thread minimum of licensing, so we only allow you to configure it for 6 vCPUs or higher. And you can see here that we'll designate how many threads SQL Server will see, and that will be how many threads are licensed for SQL Server. A little bit lower down is where you can enable point-in-time recovery. By default, we take automated backups, so 1 every 7 days. And you can also enable point-in-time recovery, which again will let you restore all databases on the instance, or you can restore a single database from that instance if you want to speed up the recovery time. And you can designate how long you want to retain logs for. So if for some reason you have a shorter retention period, you just need to be able to go back 1 day, you can do that designation here as well. Flags and parameters is where you go to enable capabilities like linked servers. Again, this allows you to run queries that span not just your primary Cloud SQL for SQL Server instance, but also run queries on other SQL Server instances as well. When you create your instance, you can designate the time zone that that instance should run in. Again, if the rest of your application is running in Pacific Standard Time, you can ensure that your database runs in that time zone as well. And then I mentioned audit. A lot of customers, again, use audit to monitor more granular actions that are being taken on their database. So once you enable audit, you can go in and actually create the audit specifications that of what you want to be monitoring on your instance. So I'm going to pause here because what we've talked about is really mostly the capabilities of, let me see if I can pause. There we go. Okay, so what we've talked about are a lot of the options that you have when you're provisioning a new instance, but we're going to switch over to an instance that I've already configured, and I want to show you a couple of things. The first is where you'll go to enable read replicas. If you're using any of the other database services, this UI is common across all of these services. So if you're running SQL Server Enterprise Edition, you can create read replicas up to 8. Again, those replicas can be either in-region or cross-region. Under the hood, those replicas are using SQL Server AGs, which is why this is supported just for SQL Server Enterprise Edition. And again, if you need to, you can go and manually promote one of those replicas. I think I just accidentally stopped it. Okay. Let's see. It won't let me play the end. So I'm going to talk through what the end looks like. And then if you come up to me afterwards, I'll show you what the ending part of this demo was. So we've talked a lot about the options you have for configuring your instance, right, and how you can leverage SQL Server capabilities, built-in high availability, data protection as well. The rest of the demo was highlighting how you can minimize downtime when you migrate. Have folks used striped backups from SQL Server and any other environments? Okay, so like a multi-file backup, SQL Server will automatically split it. Okay, I see a few hands now. This is actually a pretty powerful capability that we've recently integrated into Cloud SQL. It allows us to parallelize imports and exports. So SQL Server will allow you to split full backup into multiple files. So when you do an import, you can bring in one of those multi-file backups, which again can allow us to parallelize. When you do an export, if you just enter the parameter / striped on gcloud when you run the export, we will automatically decide how many files to split that into. The demo would show the difference, but I think when I was running a full backup, it took about 7.5 hours to do the export. When I ran a striped backup, it was right around 2. And you can, if you test this out for yourself as well on the import side, it's a really good way of reducing downtime when you're bringing in data. But also, if you're doing regular refreshes of your QA environment and you want to be taking exports that run faster, taking a striped export can really significantly minimize that downtime. And again, you can use the striped import and then bring in a differential on top of it, right? So you can do a multi-file import, which is reduced downtime on full backup, but then bring in the differential import again on top of it. And all of that together could really help reduce migration downtime from what we've seen with our customers. So with that, I'm excited to bring Scott on, and Scott is going to be talking about how Merits runs on Google Cloud.
Thank you. So I'm Scott Allred. I work for Merits. I'm director of our DevOps practice. And I'll kind of walk through our journey in Google Cloud and how we're using Cloud SQL, specifically SQL Server. So kind of if you look at the history, is back in about 2019 or so, we started looking for our area on Google Cloud. We were in a couple other cloud providers, and then the bulk of our work was actually on our on-prem data center. So the reason we did look at Google Cloud and kind of the driver was around the Kubernetes functionality. So we were looking at containerization, high availability, things with the actual application workloads. So we looked at Google, we did some proof of concepts onboarding. The first thing we really worked on after we onboarded was we did some new custom application development, focusing on, we used Postgres, Cloud SQL Postgres at that point. And then if you look at the ongoing work, kind of from that 2020 up to now, we've been migrating our legacy applications that are running in our data center. And then we also right now, and I'll talk about for new workloads, we're really focusing on Postgres or AlloyDB. But again, it's that ongoing, that big bucket of kind of the things we have running already, some of our tech debt, some of the things that we use Cloud SQL for. If you look at our strategy around migrating our existing apps, as I said, the thing that drove us really to Google Cloud was the GKE, it was our containerization. When we're looking at our database strategy there, our goal was to move our databases to support this other work and this other optimization. So our strategy was, we're gonna use GKE Autopilot now. We're gonna containerize as many of the applications as we can, increase the availability of them, minimize some of the security work we have to do on servers. So we also have attempted to, as we've migrated, kind of not rewrite these applications. These are ones that don't necessarily make sense to do a complete refactor. We just want to get some of the improvements we can with the technology that's coming along. So we try to minimize the Java code changes. And then a key part when you get to the Cloud SQL side is we really weren't looking for a lot of optimization on the database side. We just wanted something that would enable us to focus where we wanted to, which was on the application. We did get some good functionality improvements, some good cost improvements, but they were kind of secondary to our strategy. And then the last part was we want to maximize those commodity or the common type areas as far as the management. We really wanted to minimize how much we were having to patch, how much we were having to upgrade, as much as we could use managed services. It's kind of a generic architecture diagram. Every one of our apps will have a little different, but they're gonna be, a lot of our legacy ones are gonna look similar to this, which is the center part is what we're really focused on, which is containerize the Java applications, get our high availability through Kubernetes, minimize our security work we're doing there. Almost everything has a Redis memory store, so we're able to use managed service for that, able to use managed service for SQL Server. And then if you look around that's the functionality we get in the cloud, the other kind of common services that we can utilize. And then one thing I'll call out here, and I call it out on the next page, is it was kind of an unexpected thing for us, an improvement, which was some of the ability we were getting to control access to our database, the networking, getting people off where we had them on VPNs with open network access for local development, being able to use some of the tools around that are available in Google, SQL Proxy especially. So the benefits we've seen, so we have functionality benefits that we were getting there. So really the migration was a minimal effort for us to migrate. It wasn't 100% lift and shift, but it was pretty close. So we worked a lot with the Google team on some of the migration, the speed, the performance, things like that, minimize downtime. But we really didn't have to change a lot there. We did have some lessons learned, and I'll cover those later. But the other thing is we were able to, high availability is truly very simple to provision then. So making sure everything, we have high availability and multi-regional, or not multi-regional, but multi-zonal, kind of matching our Kubernetes workload profiles there. And then the last part, as I said, the Cloud SQL auth proxy has really come in advantage in letting us control that network access to that database. And so we have kind of a defense in depth where we can control the access to even get to the database, and we can then control the access at the SQL Server username, password. Let's just have some workers who, if they aren't on VPN, if they're working remote, they can still get to areas with the right controls around there. Operational benefits, so minimal ongoing maintenance we're having to do here. We're not, the patching works well, backups, once we got them in place, the amount of workload and what our DBAs have to focus on now become truly DBA tasks, help our app teams figure out performance, query issues, not figuring out the, back end, am I on the right version? Am I patching? Do I have the right storage? Able to scale pretty easily. So usually for our business, for these different applications, we have a little bit of forewarning when we need to scale up or down. So we are able to, optimize our cost and scaling up cores when we need to, down cores when we need to. Monitoring metrics, they've been flowing through. We use the operations suite, so they flow through that just the same as our application metrics. Everything is in the same place as we need to do troubleshooting. And then the last part is we're pretty close to 100% Terraform builds of our Kubernetes side, just the infrastructure, everything running within the environment there.
So I had a few more questions for Scott. I think the first is, what surprised you the most in moving to a managed service like Cloud SQL?
I don't know if it was a surprise, but it was, it did live into the promise of the amount of work we were able to kind of avoid ongoing. So, right, managed service should do that, but it doesn't always meet it. But really is, as I said, our DBA type task, our operational type task have really gone down. The second piece I mentioned earlier was the security controls, the access controls. It really is an improvement over our on-prem data center where access tended to be controlled by firewalls, by IPs. Now we can get to closer to a zero trust using, IAM, VPC service controls. So that functionality around there.
And you're using the auth proxy really throughout, right?
We are.
Okay.
We are using it heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to another company that's also looking to, undergo this migration to managed databases?
Probably when you look back, lessons learned is having we had quite a few apps that had been running for 5, 10 years. Over that time, troubleshooting, DBA is no longer here, DBAs are still here and don't remember, but there were a lot of flags. There's a lot of uniqueness that maybe was needed, maybe was not needed, but as we migrated, really reviewing the existing configuration, the database flags, figuring out which of those apply, and then working with the Google team to figure out which of those we really wanted to pull forward and which of them we just should not have even done in the first place, so to eliminate them.
Yeah. We have, I think, a general best practice of when you're moving, you reevaluate every flag that might impact performance and anything like that. Yeah. So I think that's a great call out.
Yeah, and it was like with applications, as the years go by, it's something that fixed something at midnight, 6 years ago was still in the database. No one remembered that flag was set or why it was set, and sometimes it mattered and we noticed it, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. What's next in Merit's modernization journey?
Yeah, so we've moved our large applications out of our data center. We were down to kind of the smaller ones that weren't necessarily economical to kind of containerize and hit on those. So we have done a lift and shift of the remaining workloads out of our data center into GCVE. So we'll start now that we have those databases there, we can start choosing. It's a little easier to pick off different things. We can pick off the database and leave the app in GCVE, or we can do reverse now that we're on the same network backplane and we have that low latency connection. So we'll start working those. And as I said, we're doing new application development, will be AlloyDB or Cloud SQL Postgres. We're not really doing new development in SQL Server, right? That's more, we'll support that for our legacy apps.
Well, you should also check out the DMS, the Gen AI-driven migration, which I think.
Yeah, and that is true. That is true. We do have some Oracle workloads, so just from the conversation this week, I have follow-ups to say, is it, what's the path to, do we have a path where we could get out of our Oracle Exadata into AlloyDB and use the Duet AI. When we looked at it a couple years ago, it was a little overwhelming with just the number of small changes we had to make all the way across all of the platform.
Yeah. Well, thank you for partnering with us. I can't wait to see what else Merits does on Google Cloud.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So just a few final slides, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. The first is Google Cloud Ready for Cloud SQL. This is a designation for partners that work really well with Cloud SQL. I hope you see some partners that you've worked with. I know I see partners that have helped various customers in their move to Cloud SQL. So, if you're looking for a partner to help you with your migration, with how you're, really running on Cloud SQL, I encourage you to check out some of these newly designated partners.
You heard about our options for commercial databases, Cloud SQL, and Oracle. When you're ready to move into the future, we do offer support options and collaboration to define what the ideal path is for your business. We can join you for a half-day workshop, again, collaborative and with partnership, to identify how we move your workloads to the Google Cloud through Google architecture. We'll partner with you to develop a collaborative enablement and commercial proposal for the TCO, ROI, and additional benefits that moving to the cloud and enabling these commercial databases can provide for you. And finally, we offer proof of concept evaluations with BMS, and you can use your trial credits for Cloud SQL Server. As we move forward today and close out, make sure to continue your learning journey with cloud databases. These are some of the sessions I would highly recommend you join. And finally, don't forget to give us feedback. This is the most valuable item you can give to us. Help us understand how to help you better.